This is Sports Jam. I'm Doug Doyle, and my guest is changing the landscape and discussion around sports collectibles. And this Saturday, he will be hosting a Collectible Night when the New York Red Bulls host Nashville SC at Red Bull Arena in Harrison. Darren Rovell is an Emmy Award-winning journalist who has covered the collectibles industry for more than 25 years at outlets like ESPN, CNBC, the Action Network. He's a lifelong collector himself and founder of Collect, the first media outlet devoted to the $550 billion memorabilia industry. Darren, welcome to Sports Jam.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect time to start a Collect media company, right? Because after the pandemic, this industry exploded.
Yeah, I think people, when they were alone in their houses, it's hard to find happiness. And when they could go on eBay and buy something that they know made them happy, whether it was something they threw out or something from their childhood, that's what they did. And they surrounded themselves with, collectibles. And then I guess to boot, it became more and more valuable. So it served two purposes from a psychology standpoint, but also as these things, if you pick the right things, turned into greater investments.
Before we talk about this special night at Red Bull Arena on Saturday, just collecting stuff in general. It's something, as you can tell from behind me, I have done myself for many years. And a lot of people will say, well, why do you do that, Doug? First of all, you're an old man now. Why do you need a Terry Bradshaw helmet? Why do you need to have Civil War papers from the past or anything like that? It does make me feel good. And it's also a sense memory that we connect with these moments. Like, for example, the day I met Andrew McCutchen at the MLB awards banquet. So now I have a helmet with him signing, the National League MVP. For some, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, I mean it's something that you can touch. It's, a memory is something that is in your head, and if you can jog that memory by having something in front of you, it's just an easy way to do things. I think, for me, it's the storytelling. It's I can own a story by owning something, right? And so it allows me to tell the story, and then that story becomes part of me. And so I kind of think sometimes, even though I'm buying them, that I'm borrowing them, just so that it could be, I could now have license to tell, the story. And over the years, I just love when I show something to someone and you get the wow, oh my God, like the ticket to the first Black Sox game, the game one of the 1919 World Series, and the fact that you have PSA, which grades cards, now grading something like tickets, you can find out, the population, how many there are. And I know there's probably about 12 or 15 tickets where I have the only one that is known. And that to me is, really, really cool.
I visited Ross Greenberg's home once when he was on Sports Jam, and he has this unbelievable collection of writings from generals in the Civil War.
I've heard
And
about that.
have you heard about that? And the
Yes,
one
yeah, yeah.
that he had in question, he couldn't get it authenticated right away. It turns out it was the real writing. The general had broken his hand and actually signed it in with the left hand.
Wow.
A fabulous collection. Something fabulous is coming up on Saturday.
Emil Forsberg scores. Red Bull New York off and running on home opening day. Emil Forsberg.
You're actually creating this event, as it will be this Saturday, as I mentioned, at Red Bull Arena. Tell us about how it came about and what people can expect when they visit the game.
Well, I've always had a great relationship with the Red Bulls. They do innovative things. I love the arena there, the stadium. And we came up with the idea to have Collectible Night. I have twin 10-year-old sons, and it's just incredible how much they're into cards, much like I was into cards in the 80s. it's much more complex now that you can, it's not only what's going on in the hotel room or the bowling alley. Now that you see things on eBay, you know exactly what everyone else is doing and what those prices are. But we thought, hey, let's do a Q&A starting at 6 o'clock. Let's talk about the industry. There's so many people who are getting into it, whether they're just getting into it for the first time or going deeper and deeper. And so the idea to serve as kind of a in-person access point to do that. They're going to be giving away a figurine. They're going to be giving away a collectible ticket to 7,500 people, which is near and dear to my heart because I can't believe that, tickets are, I get the idea of digital tickets, but the idea that tickets have completely gone by the wayside is very discouraging to me. Not only if there's a great moment at the game, but even what happens if it's the first time you take your kid to the game. Like, we don't have those things. And I think we've taken for granted what tickets are, and certainly now we haven't, because we don't have them anymore. So we're going to do that. We're going to play some collectible games in terms of, well, my favorite's going to be, we're going to allow a fan to look at 5 cards and pick 3 of the 5 and make sure they're getting over $50,000. I made the game extra tough, so I can't wait to see if this is, I don't know if it's a rule that the fan must always win, but it's going to be harder here.
Lionel Messi, I would imagine any kind of collectible from him has gone through the roof after the World Cup, right?
Yeah, I mean the best of the best, his jerseys that he wore in at least a half of each of the games sold for $7.8 million at Sotheby's. So the top of the line stuff. I mean, I always tell people, wherever you go, you should try to get, the best of the best, not the middle of the road stuff. Whatever makes sense for your price range, get the best that you can get, because your chance of making money is better that way, because of you being able to tell a greater story. As I've made more money, I've kind of said, okay, let me try to get the best blank signature in the world. So I've been able to get the highest George Washington or the highest Alexander Hamilton, or the best Thomas Edison. And I just think one of my investing philosophies for memorabilia is just by the way people react. It's human nature. And when they go, oh my God, that's what makes things valuable, because people get excited.
The word investing, that's not why I collect, right? It's
Right.
why
Yep.
a lot of people do, and a lot of people can make lots of money. But if you look at my collection, it's all very personal. It's mostly Pittsburgh stuff because I'm, from that area. And only family members probably will appreciate. I have every Manny Sanguian card that probably has ever been printed, almost every autograph version of his cards. And he's going into the Pittsburgh Hall of Fame, the Pittsburgh Pirates Hall of Fame, right? Along with Barry Bonds and Jim Leland this year.
There's Manny Sanguian. Manny appeared last night as a pinch batter.
Manny was a consequential figure in the 1971 series between these two clubs.
He was then younger and the starting catcher. In his heyday, this big guy could really run, the catcher, too. 1-2 with 2 out, 2 on, top of the 9th inning, 2-2 tie. Hit to the right side. It's going to be in there for a base hit. Singleton playing short, right field, throws to Murray, relay. No! Pirates get the lead.
But for the most part, many people don't even know about Manny, right? So that means so much to me. But investors, where do they stand right now? This has become something that everybody wants to know. And another reason why collect. You're giving people the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, and listen, we're in for the people who just want to be in just because, again, those memories makes it happy. I don't want to make it like it's not emotional. It's certainly emotional for me because I invest and I also love the heck out of it. So it's not one or the other. I think that's really important. But for the people that are investing, you got to take some risks. It was pretty simple in the early going, the rules of engagement, and now it's like, oh, I got a 1 of 1 card, and then there's 31 of 1s because every color of the rainbow and every color of blue and brown, and it's like, what are these things worth? I think the greatest misconception for people who are investors, especially young people, is that they think it's fantasy baseball or fantasy football. If this player plays well, therefore the card will go up. And there's a lot of other factors. How many versions of the card are there? What type of card is it? How is it graded? How many have been graded? I mean, there's so much. It's a complex world. So you have a situation where Patrick Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls, but guess what? The current prices bake in that he's going to win 5. And so it's not a simple game. I even advise people to say, who are the people who collect what you're collecting? Do they have the wherewithal to stick in the game? Like Luka Doncic is collected more on the younger side than the older side. What does that mean if you're an older person in that game? So it is very complex, and we at Collect hope to tell those stories and to guide people on their journey.
You're probably the ideal person to start Collect, right? Because not only have you reported on, business of sports and business in general, so you have that background. You've been a collector all your life, right? So you have that background as well. You're an award-winning journalist, so you know how to tell stories and make them have an impact. So this really is the perfect
And then I came from a gambling outfit for 5 years where, we were into sports gambling. I mean, it really, it comes all together, I think. We certainly pride ourselves on, great journalism. I think what happened to me was essentially, I thought that gambling after 5 years, everyone was talking about it, harder to break through, even if you did something great. And, this is such a big industry, and no one was really covering it to the length that I think they had to. And I think in the last 5 years, we now have, we're doing 6 to 10 stories a day. I think that volume probably wouldn't have been able to be done, 5 years ago. But given the auction houses and given the interest, it's definitely, the time for this to happen.
Speaking of timeliness, we lost on the day we're taping the show. We lost Jerry West, the great NBA star. Bill Walton passed away not long ago. People like that, how does that affect the industry as far as collectibles? Have you had a Jerry West jersey from an early day or whatnot? How does that impact it?
I think usually, like, after someone dies, a lot of people realize they don't have something of his or hers, and the first 48 hours is a frenzy. I don't advise people to buy in that 48 hours, but when Carl Weathers died, I screwed my own rule because I'm a big Rocky fan, and I was like, I gotta get something. It depends. I think people underappreciated both Jerry West and Bill Walton. I think what happens when someone dies is we learn more about them, even though Bill Walton was as exposed as he was. I think although it won't be the immediate bump of after he died, I think Bill Walton's now kind of on a new pedestal. And I think Jerry West, I just think underappreciated by anyone 40 years or younger. So when you tell these stories, when you read these obituaries, when you do all these things, you learn more about them, and sometimes that has a chance to really skyrocket the values. There's people who obviously wait till something like this happens and sell on the other side. And by the way, I think the discourse is, hey, that's a horrible thing to do or whatever, but that's just business. That someone wants something on the other side, so you shouldn't fault the person on the selling side.
West again. Partially blocked. The Lakers take over. It's a 5-5 game. West again blocked by Russell. Lakers maintain possession as West goes in.
We're speaking with Darren Rovell, who is the Emmy Award-winning journalist and is the founder of Collect, the first media outlet devoted to the memorabilia industry. And this Saturday, he'll be hosting Collectible Night at Red Bull Arena during the New York Red Bulls game against Nashville SC. I have an interesting story to tell you about a piece of memorabilia that, to me, is so special. For many years, my brother had a book that had a lot of pirate stuff in it, and I always looked at this piece of paper that had in pencil Roberto Clemente's autograph, right? And I said, "Boy, my brother, he copied that really nice. It looks great. It's such a nice drawing that he did." So I saved it, and then years later, we're on a bus trip to Notre Dame, and Don says to me, "Doug, you're such a memorabilia collector. It's a shame. I used to have an autograph from Roberto Clemente when I was just 10 years old. Dad saw him on the street and said, 'You know who that is? All dressed up? That's Roberto.'" And I said, "Wait a minute. It doesn't happen to be in pencil on pink paper, lined paper." And he said,
Oh my God.
"That's it." I
Oh
said,
my God.
I still have that. I thought you drew it." So eventually I gave it back to him with a piece of Clemente bat dust and put it into a frame for him so he could have that memory. But that's how it
amazing.
works, right? That's how these collectibles, as you mentioned, can lead to so many great stories. How about now the women's basketball with Caitlin Clark and many others becoming so popular right now? Where is women's basketball in the collectible industry?
Well, I mean, I think, given how far people have gone in on it, one of her cards selling for, $50,000, $60,000. I think she's now, there's a lot of people betting on her. And I think there was unrealistic expectations, the way that people were paying for her things and her autographs. I think they had banked on her scoring 35 points a game, leading the WNBA, not even thinking about, the Fever were going to be 3-11 or whatever. And, so there's a lot of pressure on her now because she's, teetering on being outside the top 20 in scoring. And she's been, not her fault, but assigned these enormous values. So I think it's certainly a wait and see. I said all along that for her in the long run and for fans, it was better for her to go back to Iowa for another year. People just absolutely crushed me for that. But I'm sticking by that story. I think to have another year of domination would have been great. And I'm confused why ESPN or Fox or whoever, didn't jump in on the NIL game and make sure she stayed in college.
Now Clark looking to push, cross-court pass. Pull, back to Clark. She will launch and bury a three. Caitlin Clark run to open up the second quarter, and Clark doing it with some defense. Comes up with the block, and then Lexi Hull finds her. Fever back within 4.
As the head of Collect now, how are you advising people? Can anybody just, reach out to you and say, "Hey, what's the best card these days? What's the rookie cards I need?" Or do you need a little bit more?
No, we have a mailbag that we always answer. That's for sure. And we kind of have our pulse on the business. Like, so when something comes out, we have a card expert, Ben Burrows, who talks about that. We try to answer your questions before you ask us. That's our goal.
You're even an author. You wrote the book First in Thirst: How Gatorade Turned the Science of Sweat into a Cultural Phenomenon, and also co-wrote On the Ball: What You Can Learn About Business from America's Sports Leaders with David Carter. I'm not sure what you haven't done, Darren, but one of the questions I do have is, do you remember what really is your first collectible?
In the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York City, I met in, I want to say, 1988, Pat Sajak and Fred Savage, which is pretty big for 1988. Not to be topped by the day in 1986, where I met on Rodeo Drive in LA, John Bon Jovi and Gary Shandling, which is bigger than the 88 meeting. And I got a autograph. I got my brother and I got an autograph from Fred Savage and kept it and still have it as my first autograph. I also remember standing outside hotels with my dad, waiting for players to come out when they're playing in the Mets and the Yankees. And I just think about my kids who are so damn spoiled. They're watching the Devils play hacky sack before a game, in full view in the bowels of the stadium, just looking at them, and me standing at a hotel for 2.5 hours, uh, just hoping that I could get the 8 feet of Tony Gwynn from the door of the hotel to the front of the walking into the bus. And after doing all that and waiting for all that, telling my dad that was awesome. So yeah, I mean, and, memories. That Fred Savage autograph was my first autograph, and then I got Frank Howard at Yankees spring training the next year. So you can remember all of these stories, and stories when it didn't happen, when you didn't get someone's autograph.
So much like I went through, Dad was very inspiring and really got you into not only collecting but sports and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Although a Cubs fan, he and I did not take to that. But yes, got me into sports. He was a catcher, I was a catcher, and then it was great to as a Mets fan, win the championship in 1986 in third grade, thinking, God, how many of these are we going to have? And here I am at 46, having not won another, or a Jets or a Nets title. So I'm pretty starving. Became a Devils fan in 2011, so did not have a title there too. So as a fan, I have one measly title of all time. Certainly, Northwestern football's not going to win the national title anytime soon. So I have committed myself to a life of pain.
Well, I can tell you, my dad and I were both catchers as well, so we have that in
Amazing.
common. Just a couple more questions for you. When it comes to this year's NFL season, so many people are excited because of the NFL draft with these new quarterbacks and so many changes. Is there someone out there that you're going, this person's going to make a difference in the sports collectible industry?
It's so hard. It's so hard to judge, who's going to be the guy. Obviously, people go after quarterbacks right away. There was an interesting situation with Marvin Harrison Jr. not signing the group licensing agreement, which means some 50 days after you still can't get his jersey, and he's not scheduled to be on a card. That's a wild scenario, and we've certainly, been watching that. The prospecting world is very, very hard. And sometimes I advise people to wait until they see a little bit of light before they go totally into something. So I don't think anyone's, for me, really standing out, because not only is it how good the player is, it depends on how good they are with a specific team and how they fit.
Not the Fred Savage autograph, but if for any reason that you want, somebody says, Darren, we're moving. Your family says we're moving, and you can only take one collectible with you. What would that be that you have right now that you value the most? Maybe it's financially, maybe it's personally.
I would say, how about you guys go? I'll stick with the collection.
That puts it in perspective.
Probably, I have a check of John F. Kennedy, where he signed. He made it out to the Washington Post to pay for his newspaper subscription in 1960. So that's a pretty special one that I love. And then I also have an unbelievable Alexander Hamilton ruling on a guy who got bad salt in the harbor, and the guy wanted to know if he should pay, if he could get around paying taxes because he couldn't sell the salt, and Hamilton ruling that he didn't have enough to judge. So there's a lot of really great, cool pieces, but I'd say maybe the Kennedy check.
So history and politics and things like that, maybe even more of a passion than sports for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mixed. I mean, I think there are moments in time that are better than sports moments. Marilyn singing "Happy Birthday" to JFK. I have that ticket. The things that the events that happened in Dallas. I own a ticket to the breakfast that morning, the dinner that didn't happen that night. I own a airport badge for someone who was at the airport that day. I think there's things that connect to you, and when they do, but then you also have to be able to get rid of them. And I think sometimes when I've told the story enough, I feel like it's enough, and it's time for me to give it to someone else.
Last question, then. Let's bring it back to the pitch, where you will be on Saturday at Red Bull Arena as the Red Bulls host Nashville SC, and there will be a special collectible night that you'll be hosting. You mentioned that you had a special relationship with the Red Bulls. What is it about soccer that you enjoy?
I think the fan base, while they're at the game, like, it's very difficult to say who's the better fan base. But in terms of soccer internationally, everywhere, the supporters group that's there, the singing of the songs, the calling out of names, there is no debate that soccer fans work harder than any other fan during a game. And that's what I respect.
No Manny Sanguian cards in your collection, right?
No, but I do know who he is.
Very good. It's been so much fun having Darren Rovell here on SportsJam. Thanks so much. Have a great time on Saturday, and continued success with Collect.
Thanks, Doug.
SportsJam is a WBGO Studios production. You can hear all the past shows by going to wbgo.org/sportsjam or wbgo.org/studios. You can also find SportsJam with Doug Doyle on the NPR list of podcasts or wherever you hear podcasts. Recently, SportsJam was named the top New Jersey news podcast in 2024 by FeedSpot Blog Reader. We appreciate that acknowledgement. Until our next SportsJam session, I'll see you at the game.